They have learned how to grow the food of the gods in a tank made of steel. Perhaps your body already knows something is wrong even if it wasn't verified yet. By the end of this, I'm going to show you the one thing they can never grow in that tank. No matter how perfect the copy is. And once you see it, we can't unsee it. This video isn't for everyone. If you want to believe everything is okay, then this isn't your video. If you feel like something is off, you want the facts, or if you're curious, or just a frequency member, if you felt my words speaking to you, welcome. Before we begin, let's make sure we can hold this heavy topic, because I know I am going to need it. Take one slow breath with me, in and out. Plant your feet flat on the floor and feel them. Your weight is in the chair. We're going into the dark together, and we're going to do it grounded. I'll make sure of that. Okay, I'm not here to... I saw 1:11 on the timer, thank you. I'm not here to tell you it's evil or trying to convince you from certain points. I'm here to sit in the part that's harder to name. The feeling, the grief underneath the headline. That something is about to happen. Because something is being taken. Not a product, it's something much older than a product. Let me give you the bones of it, so you know I'm not making this up. An Israeli company called Celleste Bio took a cacao bean, 1 or 2 beans, and pulled out the living cells. They fed those cells in a bioreactor, a steel tank of 1,000 liters, and grew real cacao butter. They call it cell suspension culture. 1 or 2 beans now do what used to take 4 tons of cacao and 10,000 square meters of living earth. Their partner is Mondelez, one of the largest chocolate companies on the planet, the owner of Cadbury. The first bars are ready to go. And there is another company, Savor, backed by Bill Gates, building fat, meaning butter, out of carbon dioxide and hydrogen. The fat we cook our lives with, out of air and gas. No cow, no field, no plants at all. The very flesh of the divine grown without a pulse. They have a clean word for this. They call it decoupling. Decoupling food from farming. It's called progress. Remember when cutting the jungle was called that? I have a different name for it. I call it an amputation of the spirit. They are cutting the umbilical cord between the plant and the earth that made it and telling us the cord was never necessary. Breaking the bonds between the meal and the soil, between mother and child. The sacred from the ground that made it sacred. A patent has no heartbeat. A bioreactor has no ancestors. The only thing it carries is distortion and fake health. I saw 11:11 on the timer, thank you. I remember the last time I bought M&Ms, it is one of my comfort foods, and it was an intrusive buy type of thing also because I boycott the big brands just for my own peace of mind, right? But anyways, I bought it. And I felt my taste buds reaction to it. It was so different. It just didn't hit the same anymore. The texture from the inside, what used to be very cacao-y, was just totally gone. It was a different taste. Let me tell you that, a new one. Cookies and cream or something. And the outside was still the same M&M, right? But the inside, it was so different. I could taste the bluntness and basically the deftness of the product on my tongue immediately. When I asked a couple of people about it, they said, yeah, some said yes, some said no, but I'm wondering, have you experienced something like this recently? Tell me in the comments, please. So, are you ready to talk about what the lab coats missed in their research? Do you know who built the system that's still been used for naming every living thing on Earth? I didn't, but I looked it up. Carl Linnaeus. It's the same man who also gave cacao its scientific name, Theobroma cacao. Of all the plants on Earth, this is the one he thought was honorable enough for the gods to describe. Theos means God, broma means food, food of the gods. That isn't poetry or admiration. It was a record of what whole civilizations already knew. To the Maya, cacao wasn't a treat, it was poured for the gods, drunk at weddings, buried with the dead, traded as money because it sat closer to the divine than gold. And listen to the story they told about where it came from. It was Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who loved human beings, who came down into the garden of the gods, stole the sacred cacao and placed it into mortal hands. For that, the other gods called it a betrayal. They cast him out, exiled for thousands of years. The deepest taboo a culture could imagine was that a god would be banished for letting us touch the food of heaven. And in the present, today, and the future, we make it in a tank. We didn't steal it from the gods, we manufactured it as if we were the gods. We skipped the serpent entirely. No theft, no exile, no all. There is a patent and a press release. Now let's go where the headlines want to take us. Real chocolate is not made, it is transformed, and the transformation is very dark. The pod is cut from the tree. The beans come out wet, wrapped in white pulp, and then they are left to rot. That's the truth of it. Fermentation is a controlled rotting. Real chocolate begins in the dark, in the wet, feral heat of decay. For days the beans sit in their own sweetness and heat as the flesh breaks down. It is a slow smolder. It is the wisdom of the rot. Then the sun, then fire, until they turn black. The alchemist had a name for this exact process. And you know it because it's the one I keep coming back to. Nigredo, the blackening, the stage where the material must rot and die and turn to black before it can ever become gold. Carl Jung took that word and used it for what happens inside a human being in the dark night. The decay, the falling apart that has to come before any real becoming. You cannot reach the red, the reborn, the made whole, without first passing through the black. That is the whole map. That is the whole reason this channel exists. Healing goes through the dark, not around it. And the bioreactor skips the nigredo. No rot, no death, no fire, no descent. Just cells multiplying in a sterile tank, fat sugar never touching soil or sun. Cacao butter without the dyeing. You cannot have the gold without the blackening. So name it for what it is. It is a spiritual bypass made physical, made industrial. The same lie as good vibes only, but now they're doing it to the food itself. Skip in the dark, skip the death. Get straight to the sweet. We, of all people, know what happens to a human being who tries to live that way. Now ask what happens to a world that tries to eat that way. Because the lab skips the dying, so it's also skipping life. People saw this 100 years ago, not the lab, the logic behind the lab. Someone named Max Weber called it the great sickness of the modern world, Entzauberung. The disenchantment of the world, the slow stripping of magic and mystery until everything that once held spirit becomes only something to play with, to own, optimize. A forest becomes lumber, a sacred tree becomes a cell line. Walter Benjamin wrote about the aura of a thing, what an original carries that a copy never can. The cacao that it grew on a real tree carries the sun that fell on it, the soil it rooted in, and the hands that tended it. Reproduce it perfectly, he warned, and the aura dies. The copy is flawless, and it is empty, and that is tasteable. Stop. Look at your hands. Feel their weight for a second. This is what they mean. The difference between a hand that holds a tool and a hand that is treated as nothing but a resource. Martin Heidegger said modern technology stops seeing the world as alive and starts seeing it as a standing reserve, as a raw material on standby, waiting to be used. Ugh, that gave me the ick. Under that gaze, the cacao tree isn't a being. It's inventory that hasn't been processed yet. None of these men were mystics. They were sober, academic men, and everyone was warning us about the exact thing that just happened in that steel tank. They told us, we just refused to listen. But these thinkers were only naming what the nervous system already felt. Because the disenchantment of the world isn't an idea in a book. It's a coldness in the gut, it's dissociation, and I saw 11:11. Again, thank you. The religious historian Mircea Eliade spent his life on one truth. The sacred doesn't float in the sky, it breaks through into the physical world, into nature through a stone, a tree, a place, a plant. He called that Hierophany. The moment the sacred breaks through the skin of the world, a particular tree in a particular place becomes the way the holy touches us. So, when you take the plant out of the soil, you don't just move it, you cut the channel the sacred came through. This is why so many of us feel a low, nameless grief we can't argue away. It isn't superstition, it isn't paranoia, it is the body remembering that food used to come from a frequency through the connection with land, with season, with the hands that grew it, with the dead who grew it before them. And that relationship is being quietly and targeted, cut off and sold back to us as convenience. And convenience is the modern word for a broken relationship. And here's what I want to say to those of us who already know what it is to be cut off from our roots. The black sheep, the parentified, the ones who raised themselves, the ones who left or who never belonged, the ones who had to find their own ground because the ground they were born on wouldn't hold them. We know the cost. We understand what it costs to be decoupled from our source. We've lived it. We know what it does to a living thing to be kept alive but suffered from where it came from. That's what they're doing now to the food of the gods, and we recognize it because we've been it. Now, the part they really don't want us to sit with, but I'm going to say it anyway. Grow cacao from a tree and no one owns the tree. It belongs to the earth, the farmer, the lineage, the land. The relationship is shared. But take a single bean, pull its cells, grow it in a tank, and that cell line can be owned. Patented, licensed. California Cultured has already filed a patent on cell-grown cacao butter. The template of the sacred plant becomes private property. For 10,000 years, the link between us and the food of the gods was held by farmers, families, whole people in West Africa, in Mesoamerica, passed hand to hand. Now that link can be held by a corporation? In the freezer? Behind the patent number? They're not just selling us food, they're moving to own the relationship between us and our food, to stand between us and Mama Gaia, to stand between us and the earth, and charge a fee. They want to own the template of the sacred. And notice who funds it. The same handful of the wealthiest men and biggest companies alive, again and again. This was never a story about chocolate. Chocolate is just where we can finally taste the shape of the move. Because chocolate is something we love, something the body reacts to. Our brain gives a chemical reaction when we taste cacao. It's they run the move on something sweet so we don't flinch. But it's always the same move. Take what belongs to everyone, sever it from its source, rebuild it somewhere they can control, sell it back, and then call it a gift to the planet. And here's the harder truth, the one that puts us inside the circle too. The tank isn't the enemy. Our hunger for the sweet without the sacrifice, that's the invitation. They aren't forcing the ghost food on us. They are betting on our exhaustion. They are betting that we are too tired to care where the relationship was broken. And most days, they're probably right. That's the part we don't get to outsource. That is the part we have to own. Now, for the thing that they can never remake or recopy, no matter how hard they try, it is the healing powers of cacao. Real cacao is bitter. Real cacao is fire. I do cacao ceremonies, and first last year when I felt very disconnected, I had my first one, and when I took it, it wasn't what I expected at all. I was very much gagging almost because real cacao hits your blocking spots. My throat chakra was very blocked, not weird since I had to relearn two languages last year, but still, real cacao is healing, real cacao is sacred, real cacao isn't anything like the thing we get to buy. And that's something that they can never remake no matter how hard they try. They can't remake the food of the gods with the quality of the gods without the source. And for those of us raised on bread and wine, think of what communion was supposed to be. Transubstantiation, ordinary matter carrying real spirit, taking into the body as a sacred act. So, when the vessel is hollow, when the cacao has no history of sun or soil, no death, what exactly are we taking into our bodies? We are eating a ghost. So, what do we do? Because I never leave us in the dark without a candle. We don't panic, we don't rage at a tank. We do the one thing they cannot decouple. We refuse to forget what something is. We remember that food came from earth and the death and the dark and fire and sun. We remember that the sweet thing in our hand once cost decent. We slow down, we let the body feel where a thing came from before we take it in. We keep the relationship alive in ourselves, even as they sell us the severed copy. And let me make that concrete because remember can stay too soft, too abstract to live in the body. So here's the practice. The next time you hold a piece of chocolate or a piece of bread, don't just eat it, hold it. For 10 seconds, feel its weight in your hand. Try to trace the lineage back through the fire, the sun, the rot, the hands that grew it. If you can't feel the lineage, you're eating a copy, and if you can, you are taking part in a small holy act of rebellion. The video ends, the practice doesn't. Let's be aware. Because here is the one thing they can never grow in the tank, and yes, there is a second one. The thing I promised you at the start. The sacred was never in the molecule. It was never in the cacao butter, although it is because you know it's healing, but you know what I mean. Let them grow the fucking molecule. The sacred was always in the relationship between the plant and the soil, between us and the source, between the gift and the sacrifice that paid for it. And the relationship cannot be patented. It can only be remembered or forgotten, but that's choice. They offer us a world without shadows. No, we know that in a world without shadows there is no depth to walk in. I won't. I won't feel at home in that kind of world. They built a way to have the gold without the blackening. We are the ones who know that there is no such thing. We are the ones who remember. We are the ones with the frequency. Thank you so very much for listening. As always, please like and subscribe if you support my content. It really helps me out with the algorithm. I love you all so very much. Stay safe, stay unharmed, and remember, frequency is power. Bye!